Space, the final frontier.
These are the voyages of the starship
Welcome, everybody, to episode 4 of the Wonderful Black Hole of Sports podcast. This is your host, JB Huskers. And once again, this is definitely one of the best weeks in sports. We're going to have a nice long show for you to break all of the news down here for you. Once again, as always, we are brought to you by thegamingtailgate.com. And let's kick it off here with the NFL free agent signings. Yes, the NFL is finally back after a lengthy lockout. Thankfully, we didn't lose any meaningful football as a result of the lockout. But now that the lockout has ended, we are now going to be taking a look at a bunch of players moving. Some trades already been dealt, and a lot of free agents also signed. There's still some big names still out there, though. And even on top of that, this week, the MLB trade deadline occurred. The deadline had occurred at 3 Central today, Sunday, July 31st. So with both of those happening here at the same time, it's definitely been a whirlwind of a week for sports. Definitely got to love it. You can't complain. Into the NFL, the biggest free agent fish that was caught was by the Eagles. Obviously, the biggest name out there was Nnamdi Asomugha from the Oakland Raiders. Shutdown corner supreme. The talk was that he was going to sign either with the Jets or the Cowboys. Could you imagine him being on the opposite side of Darrelle Revis? Whoa. But in the end, a big surprise team comes in and definitely shocks the nation as the Philadelphia Eagles out of the blue swoop in and grab Nnamdi Asomugha. Definitely the Eagles have infinitely increased their defensive capabilities with the signing there. On top of that, Philly also has signed a couple of great defensive linemen away from the Packers and the Titans. Colin Jenkins and Jason Babin are both some great signings for that defensive line. And, of course, the Eagles were not done being in the headlines. They traded Kevin Kolb to the Arizona Cardinals for a second-round pick and Dominic Rodgers-Cromartie. Cobb was already not going to be in their plans for this year, and they signed a capable backup to Michael Vick with Vince Young. And, in the end, they got a good corner out of the deal, got themselves a second-round pick, which is definitely typically a great value is to get that second-round pick. Rodgers-Cromartie has had 13 picks in the first 3 seasons. 4 of those returned for a touchdown. He's definitely a very speedy corner, and so him alongside Asomugha, that defense is just going to be insane, I think, for the Philadelphia Eagles. In terms of Kevin Kolb, he gets a chance to prove that he's an NFL quarterback finally. He's got all the weapons in Arizona that he could possibly want, especially with a young back like Beanie Wells. You got, of course, Larry Fitzgerald, probably one of the top 3 best wide receivers in the game. And then on top of that, just recently signed, Arizona got themselves a great tight end, Todd Heap. Hopefully he's not past his prime here, and Arizona is thinking so as well. Todd Heap will be another great fit for Kevin Kolb. Definitely he's going to have the tools to be able to succeed. The other big question mark in regards to free agent signings was, of course, Plaxico Burress, who recently was released out of jail, was in jail for 2 years on a felony weapons violation in New York. He hasn't played in the NFL since 2008. This was another surprise signing, as this towards the end of the week it came down to, it sounded like the Steelers and the Giants that were going to go sign him, and instead the Jets come in and pick up Burress, and that to me almost makes me think that they're not going to go after Randy Moss. It's still possible, as it was also reported today that LaDainian Tomlinson has restructured his contract to make a little more cap room. They get Burris for a 1-year deal. They could possibly sign Randy Moss to another 1-year deal if they've got enough cap room, but it's kind of hard telling if that's going to happen right now after that signing. Gets to fit in right away with a bunch of young rising stars for the New York Jets, known for their defense, of course, under Rex Ryan, but he's going to be opposite of Santonio Holmes, who re-signed with the Jets. You know, you got Sean Green in there, you got Dustin Keller at tight end, and of course you got the veteran of LT at running back as well. They've got a lot of good young players, and signing Holmes, it's going to be definitely interesting with Burris to see if he's able to regain his form. And he is 34, hasn't been in the league since 2008. You know, so they could definitely make a big splash with all these young players. It's going to be definitely an interesting story to keep an eye on throughout the season. Over to the NFC West, Seattle definitely has made a little bit of a power play. They got themselves a couple of ex-Minnesota Vikings, Tavares Jackson and Sidney Rice. They're definitely a little bit of a gamble because Tavares Jackson has really yet to prove himself, but he does seem to have some capable tools to be a quarterback in the league. Sidney Rice had a huge breakout campaign in 2009 for Minnesota with Brett Favre at quarterback, but unfortunately was limited due to injury in 2010, only played about 6 games. But on top of those two offensive weapons, they also signed a little bit of an anchor. Former top draft pick from Oakland, Robert Gallery, also comes over to the Seahawks, and which I think that definitely instantly makes their offensive line better. If you get this core of new guys in there, along with Marshawn Lynch, you know, the Seahawks are definitely trying to make a power play because in the NFC West, it's such a weak division. Only a couple of great moves could definitely propel you to the top of that division. One of the best linebackers that was signed was off the Buffalo Bills, Paul Posluszny. He is signed by the Jacksonville Jaguars. They have just a completely terrible defense, so this is definitely a step in the right direction. Within the ESPN grades, Posluszny was the second best linebacker in free agency behind Tamba Hali, but Hali was franchised by the Chiefs, so he will definitely be staying in Kansas City this year. Posluszny, he definitely flourished in the Bills' 3-4 scheme. He had a lot of tackles last season. The Jags run a 4-3, so he may not get those big numbers, but he's definitely going to be a key cog in that defense as they try to turn around that horrible defense that they had. Another linebacker that we want to talk about here, Takeo Spikes, is signed away from the 49ers. He is signed by the San Diego Chargers. That's definitely good news for San Diego. That helps bolster a top 10 defense. They were 10th in the league in points given up last year. Key wide receiver for the Jacksonville offense last year, Michael Sims Walker. He signs with the Rams. He was a good production wide receiver in Jacksonville, and I feel like he's going to be a great target for Sam Bradford in his sophomore campaign. They may, if Donnie Avery comes back from the injury that he had, there's some good young talent that, and Sam Bradford definitely proved in his rookie season that he belongs in the league. So the signing with Sims Walker should be an exciting one for Rams fans for sure. Later on, we'll talk about the trade of Reggie Bush from New Orleans to Miami, but free agent signing to replace Reggie Bush, the speedy, tiny Darren Sproles. He leaves San Diego. He is going to the New Orleans Saints, so he will definitely seem to be that replacement for Reggie Bush. He'll be that little scat back. Every once in a while, throw him in there when which seems to be. I would assume Mark Ingram's probably going to be the starter this year if they don't get Pierre Thomas back. So that's a pretty good signee to kind of replace a good weapon that you lost there with Reggie Bush. The Chiefs, they signed themselves a good slot receiver, Steve Breston, out of Arizona. Todd Haley used to coach Steve Breston, and so he's definitely familiar with the guy. He's going to be a great option, I think, for Matt Castle. And the number one thing with that is he's going to take some pressure off Dwayne Bowe, and so you're going to have to keep an eye on both Breston and Bowe. And that may definitely open up things for that very talented young wide receiver in Dwayne Bowe there. My Chicago Bears, they sign Marion Barber. Up until this point, as a Bears fan, very disappointing for me. Nothing really happening. the chances of Olin Kreutz, their longtime center, he's not going to be coming back. Greg Olson, a very likable, productive tight end, gets traded to the Panthers. And so it's really been so far a really disappointing offseason for the Chicago Bears. And this Marion Barber signing is the very first bit of good news to come out of the Chicago camp. He'll be a great compliment back to Matt Forte, who was rumored to be holding out, but thankfully those rumors turned out to be false. Marion Barber becomes the third Cowboy signed by the Bears, as they also got a pair of Cowboy wide receivers in free agency with Roy Williams and Sam Hurd. I'm a little more excited of Sam Hurd than I am Roy Williams, even though he is reunited with Mike Martz from his Detroit days. But Roy Williams has just been the huge, major disappointment. But you never know. You know, the combination of Mike Martz, Jay Cutler, and Roy Williams, it could actually turn out, but I'm almost having the feeling that's more like a Muhsin Muhammad type of deal. Bears signed him hot off of Carolina, and he just... You know, where a lot of people like to say about the Chicago Bears is where receivers go to die. So hopefully that's not the case there, but definitely excited with the Marion Barber signing. Now, we are still, you know, obviously in full swing for the free agent season. There are a lot of big names that are still out there yet to be signed, so there's still a lot of excitement to talk about, and some of these guys we may talk about in next week's show. The biggest one right now is, I would believe, Ahmad Bradshaw for the New York Giants. He's the running back that is, it sounds like he's not going to be coming back for them, and he is definitely a explosive running back. He's had some good years for New York, and whoever signs him, he'll definitely be the feature back right away for them. It'll be interesting to see if teams like if teams with rookie running backs, with the drafting of Mark Ingram and Darren Thomas, it's interesting to see if one of those teams goes after Bradshaw, or if they decide to just throw their rookies, right out into the starting position, right out on their rookie season. It's definitely going to be interesting to see where Bradshaw falls. He's definitely the top target right now for most people. One of the best guards in the league, the gigantic Carl Nicks for the Saints, he's also still available. Zach Miller, talented tight end out of Oakland, he is going to still be around. Maybe he could go to Baltimore, to fill in for Todd Heap, and definitely where Heap had flourished in Baltimore, Miller is young enough he could actually maybe turn himself into another version there of Todd Heap. Stonehands himself, Braylon Edwards, he definitely is not going to be coming back to the Jets. He's going to be just asking for too much money there. He's still out there. Steve Smith of the Giants, another productive catching wide receiver. He can almost get you 100 catches per season. He's still out there in free agency. Michael Bush, running back from Oakland. Ronnie Brown, another running back from Miami, are still out there. Of course, Randy Moss. They thought maybe the Jets would sign him. It's very unlikely that Tennessee is going to take him. And then finally, tackle machine Barrett Ruud of the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. There's a guy that I would love to see get signed, even though the Bears have Urlacher and Briggs. Oh, why don't we just get another one with Barrett Ruud? I would love it. On top of all the free agency talk, there were quite a few big trades that came down right as soon as that lockout ended. One of the biggest ones was Donovan McNabb traded from Washington to Minnesota for a pair of 6th-round picks. That basically shows you that Washington just didn't really care what they got for him. They, a couple of 6th-round picks is good enough to get rid of McNabb, even though, of course, McNabb in the down years of his career, but he could still be productive in the league. In Minnesota, desperate need of a quarterback. Joe Webb is clearly not ready. We don't even want to talk about Brett Favre in this podcast, but we'll bring him up too. But Minnesota definitely in need of a quarterback. They draft Christian Ponder, but you don't really want to throw him to the Wolves right away, especially when you're in a division that includes the monstrous defensive line of the Detroit Lions with Ndamukong Suh getting licking his chops twice a year. So you definitely don't want to throw a rookie into the Wolves just yet there. So the signing of McNabb is definitely great for the Vikings to give Ponder a little bit of time to learn the offense and such. Albert Hainsworth, more known for his money than his talents on the field lately, traded to New England for a 5th-round pick. New England, of course, they like to take outcasts and turn them into productive backs. Corey Dillon, a key example of that. Another example that Washington basically just wanting to get rid of this guy, not getting much back. A fifth-round pick. New England stockpiles draft picks left and right, so they can definitely toss one as a possible gamble on a guy that can be productive. But I mean, he's already not off to a good start in New England, as he already failed a conditioning test, something he was well known for in his days in Washington. We'll go into a little more detail in the Gaming Tailgaters mailbag about the Albert Haynesworth trade there, along with another guy that the Pats got in a trade, Chad Ocho Cinco Johnson. A fresh start for Chad Johnson after a terrible 2010 campaign. The Bengals went away from the run game that did them so well in 2009, and they went to more of a passing game. Bit him in the ass with a 4-12 season. So this is a good restart here maybe for Johnson. He already says he's ready to do things the Patriots way. With that, I almost assume that he may go back to Chad Johnson and get rid of that ridiculous Ocho Cinco, which does not even stand for 85 in Spanish, by the way, if you haven't known that by now. But in my opinion, this may be one of the more productive trades made this year. I'm thinking that Chad Johnson's going to have a great season for the Patriots with Tom Brady under center. I definitely think he can help him out. As for a winner so far in this one week microcosm of an off season, everything is basically condensed down to this quick little rush to sign everybody as training camps have already started this week. The winner so far is clearly the Philadelphia Eagles. They just get the defense gets insanely better with the trade for Rogers Cromartie. Like I said, he had 13 picks in his first 3 seasons in the NFL. Definitely a speedy corner. And then, of course, you got your shutdown corner in Nnamdi Asomugha. Eagles are definitely the winners, and so is anybody that probably plays with the Eagles in Madden NFL 12. My loser so far in this offseason period, this quick 1 week period, is I would say is the San Francisco 49ers. They had a chance to get Nnamdi Asomugha from Oakland. They lost out on that. They already lost to KO Spikes, and there's 3 other key defensive players in Abrayo, Franklin, Manny Lawson, and Dashawn Goldson. They're going to possibly lose those 3 guys to free agency as well. This is just 1 week, though. There's still a lot of time left for the Niners to make some signings, but this was a good chance to make a splash in a weak NFC West, and already in the first week they are outshined by Arizona and Seattle.